Hello and welcome to another episode of the Half-Life Show. I'm Subu, as usual here with Vikram. Okay, Vikram, I want to start by lodging a grievance.
Against me?
No, against my kid.
What do you do now?
That little fellow, he recently turned 3, right? I can't get my eyes off him even for a single second now. People said that as these kids grow up, it'll get easier, but it only seems to be getting harder for me. We were at the farmer's market last weekend, and he has a lot of opinions. So once we get to this farmer's market, you have all these stalls selling vegetables and fruits, and you have these stalls selling food and all these baked goods and stuff like that. So when we get to the farmer's market, the first thing he wants us to do is go to the bakery, and he has to choose a pastry of his liking. So we do that. And then what this guy did was he just ate it clean with his face full of cream. And then he walks up to the popcorn stand and he pulls down his pants and decides that it's a perfect place to go take a pee. And I was actually a good 10 feet away from him. I had to run over there and go and pick him up before he could start taking a leak at the popcorn stand. And then take him into a coffee shop. And then obviously these places have a rule that the restroom is only for customers. So I had to buy that coffee because my son wanted to take a leak. It was all a complete mess. And then I bring him out. Okay, we settle down. We go and decide to get some lunch. We are sitting at this restaurant. And anytime he sees a glass of water, he has to put something into it. So then he takes the salt shaker from our table and starts walking around all the other tables. And I have to keep walking behind him because if I don't, then he'll start putting salt into other people's water. And all this really exhausted me that I decided, you know what, I just want to sit down and have my lunch. So I do that. And then in 1 second, this guy disappears. And I see 2 tables across this couple who are probably having a nice afternoon date. Oh, no. I hear this thing coming from our 2 tables across. I go and see my son is unscrewing the umbrella that they're sitting under and it almost fell on them. And then I had to go and apologize. And then we just asked for a few boxes. We packed the food and had to get out of there. Oh, God, man.
Oh, God, you got to keep him on a close leash. People actually put leashes on their kids. I don't suggest you do that. Just a figure of speech. Don't actually get a leash.
Yeah, man. Actually, so all of these outings, I really enjoyed it. It's fun watching him do his antics. But any of these outings, they get very exhausting. It's like a good workout. I lose like 1,000 calories every time I take him out somewhere.
So yesterday, my older one comes to me and he's very excited. So I'm like, what's up? Tell me something. He's like, yeah. And he says, tomorrow, my friend in school, he's going to give me a mosasaur tooth. Mosasaur is obviously kind of dinosaur. And kids obviously know the names of all the dinosaurs. I don't know how they do this. So I'm going to get a mosasaur tooth. I'm like, oh, really? Where did he find it, your friend? It's like, oh, he went digging for it. He dug like 5 to 7 feet and he's going to get a tooth and he's going to give it to me. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Is it a real dinosaur tooth?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it totally is a real tooth. Okay. How do you know? He's like, that's because he told me it's real. So so he's going to go get a real dinosaur tooth.
Real dinosaur tooth, yeah. It's amazing.
And speaking of teeth, right? The older one has his teeth start to fall off because he's like over 6 years old. His teeth are wiggling here and there. So obviously the younger one is feeling very left out now because his teeth are not wiggling. So one fine morning, he comes to me and is like, my teeth are wiggling. Look, my teeth are wiggling. I'm like, which tooth is wiggling? And he's like, oh, God, I don't know. Then he looks to his older brother. Hey, which tooth is wiggling for me? Like, dude, your tooth is not wiggling. You're so 4 years old. Your tooth is not wiggling. Okay.
That is so adorable, man.
Oh, so they don't have a concept of time. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, he basically wants to join his older brother's tribe. And in his tribe, you got to be losing teeth to join that tribe.
Exactly. He wants to be included.
Okay, so for this week's episode, I've been pondering this idea, which is we humans, we behave in a certain way with money, right? We accumulate it, We let it dictate our self-worth. We flaunt it. We get greedy. We get selfish. We fight over it. And we do all these things with money. We all know that time is our one true resource. So my question is that these behaviors that we have with money, should we instead be behaving with time like that? So that's the preface of our topic. So what do you think about this?
I don't know where I read this, or is this something you told me? But time is the only resource you cannot replenish in any way possible. You take money, you put it into a bank account, there's the magic of compounding. So, money put in a bank account can grow, but time left alone by itself only depletes. So,
Right.
it is, in essence, a much more valuable resource considering that supply is always going out and there's always demand for it. But somehow we don't seem to prioritize time over money in our life.
So now making money is one of our main concerns in life, right? We really work hard earning money and we spend a ton of our energy trying to earn this money. But we don't seem to, like you said, we don't seem to be spending, once you have made enough money, we don't seem to be spending as much energy trying to earn time in a way. So there's this analogy I came across, right? If you think of life as a cross country road trip from San Francisco to New York, then if you don't have enough gas in your tank, which is equivalent to not having enough money, then you will never stop worrying about it. But once you have enough gas in your tank, then you should spend your time enjoying the sights, enjoying the landscapes. You'll probably be driving through beautiful national parks, just soaking in the moment. That's what you should do once you have enough gas in your tank. But if you continue to spend your energies earning money, that is equivalent to stopping at every single gas station along the way from San Francisco to New York instead of enjoying the journey.
Yeah, it's a nice analogy.
We sort of take this for granted. We all, it doesn't matter where you are in the social strata. If you have, we've set up society in such a way that we feel that money is the main reward. That's what we are all working towards, kind of a thing. And we don't feel like saving time doesn't feel like a reward.
Why do you think that is?
The way society is set up, at least since the beginning of the industrial age, pre-industrial age, I think that my understanding is that society was built such that your safety net was your tribe, right? And so if you had a child, then the whole village would help you raise the child. The unit that worked together was the village. One person being poor meant that the whole village is poor and there's something really wrong. They had a bad famine and there isn't enough food to go around and everyone's struggling. So post-industrial era came the age of the governments where everyone's sort of working for themselves. A family has to take care of themselves, and the borders of village and society and tribe sort of dissolved in a way, and where you would build a home and people are like, you're jealous of your neighbor if he's making more money. This whole thing of selfishness sort of came about and things like that. So you're always worrying about yourself. And with the dawn of the industrial age, the safety net of your tribe went away and you had to build your own safety net. And we know this firsthand because as children of the 80s and the 90s in India, which was a very tough place to grow up, no one really had a safety net. All that our parents could think of is, hey, there is, forget about savings. I want to make enough money so that this month I can buy my groceries and this month I can send my children to school. And that's how everyone was living in a way. All of us as children, we were raised with this idea that, look, you have got to take care of yourself. You don't have any safety net. So if you don't, and the only way for you to build your safety net is to make enough money. And the more money that you have, the bigger safety net you have. And I think that narrative is so ingrained in us that the concept of, hey, time is a valuable resource completely vaporized. It didn't exist because the narrative that our parents grew up with is that, what are you talking about time? If you worry about anything else other than making money, you probably won't live more than a year. Forget about time. You won't have a life.
I have a theory.
Okay, go for it. What do you think?
My theory is that money is the only thing that gives you something material in terms of reward. If you earn more money, you can have a bigger house, a bigger car. You can travel, which is something that people look forward to a lot, and they travel expensively, go to fantastic destinations. So it seems like these are all like chips you can collect along the way and put it in your little bag of life chips and then show off to everybody. Like, look at all these things I have done. Like you're collecting Pokemon cards. But when you save time, you don't have anything to show for it other than time itself.
That's correct. Yeah, it looks like we are just bad at realizing the worth of time, it seems like. But whereas money is something that is tangible and you exchange it for other goods. And to an extent, even if the money is just sitting in your bank account and just watching it accumulate seems to be more tangible and a bigger sign of success than the thought of, hey, have I spent my time wisely? It doesn't seem like that is very tangible.
Correct. So I came across this really nice quote from the Dalai Lama. He was asked what surprised him most about humanity. And his answer was man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health. And then he's so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die and then dies having never really lived.
That is so beautiful. Whatever you just said is a really good summary of what I'm going to say next. So I was thinking about instead of making money, how do you make time? How do you earn time? There are four ways I could think of. Number one is eating healthy. So because if you live on a diet which primarily consists of processed foods and sugars, then you are essentially losing time. If you choose to eat healthy, then it is a good proxy for earning time because you are extending your health span and your longevity. So similarly, with eating healthy, it has been clinically proven that sleep is like a super drug, right? So the quality of sleep that you get directly affects your health span. Really prioritizing sleep, which we have spoken in a couple of past episodes, which seems to be my bane in some ways, is another good proxy for earning time. And the last thing is, of course, exercise, which is again, it's clinically proven that it is extremely required in the current world where most of us spend a lot of time sitting and eating, essentially. And the
Right.
last thing is this concept called Ikigai. So it's a Japanese word which loosely translates to your reason for waking up every morning or your reason to be alive. Okay, there are these blue zones across the world where the number of centenarians, which is people who live up to 100, is much higher than the average. And Okinawa in Japan is one of these blue zones. And there were these studies done there regarding why are these people so happy and why do these people live so long. And one of the summaries of the study was this concept of Ikigai, where people there, instead of seeking out money with the thought that one day they will be happy, they seek out this thing called as Ikigai, saying that, hey, I want to seek out my purpose in life. So seeking out purpose in life and happiness is their primary currency rather than seeking out money. Now I'm going to send you let me send you this picture. I'm going to send it to you over text. Open this up. This picture, which we'll put in the show notes, is a picture of what Ikigai is. And what this picture shows is Ikigai sits in this intersection of four circles. Okay. And the four circles are: what do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what you can be paid for. So if you find the intersection of these four circles, which is, hey, finding something you love, finding something that you're good at, and finding and hopefully what you're good at is also what the world needs and what you can be paid for. This is sort of the primary thing in life that they seek out. And if you if you are successful at finding your ikigai, your reason to be alive, they found that you're excited to wake up in the morning. You have a different outlook on life. You are living life with more intent. Like, you're excited to wake up every morning. And then they found that with Ikigai, these things like cardiovascular markers, like things like whatever stress and heart attacks and all of these other things, are actually much better in people who have found a good purpose to wake up every morning.
I'm looking at this picture some more, and there is a lot more detail to this than I saw initially. It seems like there are other intersection regions. Like if you are good at something and you do what you love, then that intersection is passion.
Right.
And if you're doing what you love and the world needs that, then the intersection is a mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
And between what you
What are you
can
good
be
at?
paid for and what the world needs is vocation, your occupation, right? And what you're good
Yeah.
at and what you can be paid for is profession.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
there are actually interestingly empty zones where these things don't coincide. And that gives you feelings of uselessness, emptiness, uncertainty, things like that. It's a very beautiful
Correct. Correct.
diagram.
It's a beautiful diagram. It's such a good summary, right? Like, for example, there's a general notion of a lot of people are unhappy with their day jobs. And I think that sort of falls into you're good at something and you can be paid for it. Okay. And that becomes your profession. But unfortunately, you don't like it. So you wake up every morning, you're not excited about going to your 9 to 5 job. And because that's your profession, that's what you can be paid for, but you don't really enjoy doing that all day.
Mm.
And there are also these other books on eating healthy, which say that one of the reasons why there is a rise in obesity among adults is that you are unhappy with the way your day goes. And at lunch or at dinner, you think of food as your treat, right? You go to
Mm.
work and then you come back at the end of the day and you're feeling very worn out. You just hated working at this place the whole day, and you just gorge on like a good burger and ice cream or something like that, and that gives you the required dopamine hit to to make you feel better, essentially, and to make you feel like rewarded.
So, these four ways to buy time is basically to eat healthy, to sleep, to exercise, and to find your ikigai. The first three are obvious, but the fourth one is a really interesting idea. I actually also read a blog from a really nice website that I've been following recently called moretothat.com. And it's by a guy whose name is Lawrence Yu. He writes these articles and he is an illustrator as well. So there's a lot of good pictures and all that in his blogs. But
Mm.
basically, he has this article called The Nothingness of Money. And as engineers, I think we'll appreciate this idea. So imagine a graph where on the y axis, you have thoughts about money, on the x axis, you have time.
Okay.
Okay, so typically, everybody's life goes like this. At birth, you have no thoughts about money, and it's kind of like slowly rising. And at some point, you start working or something, and it becomes a steep, you know, climb, and you think about money all the time. And it stays like that the day you're almost about to die or you're on
Right.
your deathbed, and then you stop thinking about money, and then that's death. So that is the
Wow.
typical way of looking at it. But he analyzes this curve and says, like, things can be different, really. Because look at it this way: you are from birth, you didn't think about money, and then now you're hit your work life and you're thinking about money all the time. Then what happens is that suddenly, let's say something happens and that person dies, like accidents, so many health issues, whatever happens. And then it's just zero. No, you hit a brick wall. There's no point in
Yeah.
that. The whole
Right.
point to life is gone. But okay, I understand you can argue that that's a bit of an extreme view. People tell you have to live like every day is your last, but okay, let's get a little bit more practical than that. So there's another camp, which is the financial independence and retire early camp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So their idea is to do with retirement. So the whole concept is to front load your thoughts about money so that you get it over with, and hopefully you hit this position in which you don't need any more money. And then your steep cliff immediately falls off, and it becomes, no thoughts about money for the rest of your life. You live happily. So that's the ideal
Yeah.
situation. Normally, though, it doesn't happen that way. There are a couple of reasons why. One, to get to a point where you have so much money that you don't have to think about it for the rest of your life, you have to think about money a lot in the beginning when you're front
Right.
loading it. You have to work very hard. You have to invest properly. You'll probably check your portfolio 10 times a day. You have to save every nickel and penny, not spend anything to get to that front loading point. And now the problem usually happens is that now you have thoughts about money has far overshot what you would have normally done so because of your
Correct.
financial independence goal. And now what happens is that you cannot abandon the habits you have generated for 10, 15 years of your life. Uh, you're not suddenly going to start spending the money. You're not suddenly going
Yeah,
to
it's
stop
ingrained
checking
in
your
you.
portfolio. You have become a new person in the 15, 20 years you took to front load your portfolio,
Yeah.
hoping that you will now live a very happy and relaxed, no thoughts about money life. But that doesn't happen. Your habits remain. So now you may arguably be worse off because now your
Mm.
thoughts about money are stuck at a very high level and never come down till death, because that's how you've become because of
Yeah.
your financial independence.
You may feel that you're financially independent at the age of 40, but from 25 to 40, you've been thinking about money so much that from 40 until the time you die, you're still checking your bank balance every day.
Things can't change. They've
Things
become
can't change. Yeah.
habits. You have
They
become a
become
new
habits.
person
Yeah.
from when you were 25 to when you were 40.
Yeah.
So that is the problem with that approach. So there is a general balance I think one can find where you sit back and think about what's going to be written on your epitaph. It's kind of dark, but nobody's going to say that this blog article says, and nobody's going to say that so and so beat the S&P 500 by 10% each year. It's kind of silly when you think about that. So
Yeah.
whatever the argument you can use to bring yourself back to reality,
Right.
is just to reduce your thoughts about money after some time. There's no
Right.
problem with having thoughts about money all the time when you're starting off your career, for example. But then as
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
progress and as you think you're getting enough to sustain your lifestyle, start toning it down
Correct.
a bit. Think less
Correct.
about
Yeah.
money. And so
Yeah.
you can reach a happy medium that you can live with to the end of your life. And then finally, when you on your deathbed and you slide to zero, you don't have that regret that you would
Yes.
have had
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. Right. Right.
We'll have this article in the show notes, of course. It's a very
Yeah.
nice one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate what you said, right? Neither of us are saying that thoughts of money, making money are bad. Neither of us are saying that. You need to think about money at least earlier on in your life, because if you don't have a required amount of gas in the tank, then I mean, it's your sustenance. That's it's your livelihood, right? You will keep worrying about it. So all that I guess what we are really talking about is that the early part of your life, our livelihood and making money, that we are never able to get over that even later in life when we feel like we are living a comfortable life.
Yeah. It's definitely coming around in my mind these days, at least.
Hmm.
I'm learning as I'm getting older the value of time. And there is an extreme view that I've seen some people talk about where they say, how much is your time worth to you? So let's say I make, I don't know, $30 an hour.
Hmm.
So if you have to do something
Hmm.
that costs you $30, don't spend your time doing that. Instead, get someone to do that for you. I
Correct.
find that view a little bit too generous, in my opinion, because if I do outsource something that I regularly do to someone else, it's not like I'm going to spend that 1 hour making those $30.
Yeah.
I'm not. Okay. It's just an excuse in my mind that I am using to not do something and get someone else to do it. That being said, I also am beginning to realize from my changing my own mindset that has been so ingrained to me, like that it really is okay to get some things out of your plate. Example in my mind right now is basically getting some help around the house, like with some cleaning, getting somebody to maybe trim the garden once in a while. I know you can do everything on by yourself if you lay down the math of it all. you'll be like, okay, look, I can go buy these tools from like a store. I can do all this work myself. In the long run, I will save money by thousands of dollars every year. But then what I just realized is that there is a cost of not only time being spent into it, there is energy that is being spent into it. Then you have to recover from the lost energy. And during this entire time, you have your family, your kids are at home, your kids are young, they want to play with you, but you're always saying, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I can't do this right now, I don't have the time, how about we do this tomorrow? And then what happens is they're all grown up, and then you have lost your opportunity to do all those things you could have done with your children when they were young.
Correct. Yeah.
So that is a trade-off I have recently learned to make, and I think it's working out really well for us, because I really do have energy and time to spend with the family. Get a spring cleaning once a year at the very least. It's going to be, in the United States, a few $100s. So in a year, you can always justify it in the number of Starbucks coffees you have, which is what every financial article ever tells you. But yeah, which is again something that I find very strange, but let's not get into that. But I think it can be justified at any scale. You can spend anywhere from a few $100s to thousands of dollars for any service. But getting something that you can reclaim your time and energy back is actually quite valuable.
The Starbucks thing that you spoke about, right? For a few years now, there's a movement going in the other direction as well. Books earlier used to say, hey, you don't need that cup of coffee from Starbucks every morning, save it. And it adds up to $150 a month or whatever. But now in the last 4-5 years, there are a lot of younger entrepreneurs and younger financial advisors who say that, look, hey, that cup of Starbucks, if that gets you up in the morning and gets you all excited to start your day, then it is well spent. Don't worry about that $4, $3 or $4 you spend on Starbucks. Go drink it every day if you have to, if that's what gets you through the day. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing is that some people have asked me like how I do all the things that I do, in the sense that I am productive at work. I do spend time with the family. Like, we do this podcast together. I do play music. I do record music. So all these things. How do you find time for it? So I think the things that I have realized that got me to doing some of these things and that have helped along the way, I'm just putting it out there so that maybe if somebody else is in our shoes, they may find something like this useful. A lot of it starts from habit creation. Because when you look at your day, you spend so many hours doing your job. But then, if you can dedicate the same hour of every day to doing the same thing, that is extremely valuable in terms of getting your time back to yourself. Because there is always time that slips through the cracks. For example, when I wake up in the morning and I am making my coffee, I see the dishes in the dishwasher still there, and I just take them and put them away, right? By the time my kettle boils. So that's where I'm saying. So that is not a job for me anymore. No, incremental work is something I've discovered recently. Whenever the laundry fills up to like even like a medium level of load, I just run it. The dishwasher runs even half loads if they have to, because the price of these things piling up is enormous. When I wake up on a Saturday morning and I see the entire kitchen is wrecked and
Yeah.
I see the laundry bags overflowing,
Oh my God.
I see my weekend is disappearing in front of my eyes. So
motivating.
yeah, so habit forming in a daily fashion is very helpful in that regard. As soon as the kids finish eating and they're doing their nighttime chores of brushing and all that, I fold whatever laundry that's lying around, or I fold at least half of it. Because again, incrementally, you don't have to finish what you started. You can start and you can
That's
stop.
good. Yeah.
And
That's
eventually
nice.
you will finish it. So that's the way I have been getting by these days.
So what you're saying is that having discipline in the way you conduct your daily life is another way to earn time.
That's a really nice way
Essentially.
of putting it. Yes,
Yeah.
I think we should add that as a number 5 to the list. After
Number 5.
Ikigai,
Yeah.
it is basically discipline. Can get you a
Discipline.
lot of time back. Yes.
That's good. Okay, so I want to go now. We've been speaking about making time versus making money, right? Now, I want to go to the next behavior we have with money, which is saving money, right? This is another activity that we spend a lot of energy and thought towards. Now, in this country, in US, we are famous for having a very low average savings rate. Okay, so traditionally, the savings rate in this country has been less than 10%, more like 6 or 7%, which is like abysmally low. Okay. Now, because of that, right, because that number is in the face, there is a lot of advice, there have been a lot of books, and there is generally a healthy narrative around how people should save money and build up a next egg. There's a lot of information around that. And you see this playing on TV and the news channels quite often that, hey, you should be saving more money. But I think there isn't a similar weight placed on saving time. Okay, and saving time essentially means being careful with how we spend our time and being careful with what we spend it on. Now, for example, um, this time and attention is become a currency these days on social media apps, right? So all of these social media companies and all these news channels, they want us to spend our time and attention because that is the currency that they are trying to earn. Okay, but if we are selfish with our time, if we just behave selfishly with our time, then hopefully we won't succumb to this when you open up Twitter or Instagram. So, so being selfish, thinking of time in a selfish way, I'm hoping that angle will help us get over the dopamine hit, which is like a very big reward, right?
I think there is an uprising trend in the mentality that people do want to save time, but it is actually framed in a different context. And that is actually in the context of productivity gurus.
Correct. It is now called productivity porn, right? Because you
Right.
have people like this Gary V, whole segment of YouTube telling you how you can be productive with time, but the lens through which they see productivity is that, hey, have you gotten through all of your emails? Is your inbox zero? How to segment the 8 hours you have in a day to keep every single minute useful. But the problem is, like, I think you said this, Vikram, from the book 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman, where the guy says that, look, man, we only have 4,000 weeks to live. Okay. Don't worry about making your inbox zero. Nobody's going to care about that. So the idea of productivity itself is good. I think these young YouTubers are trying to say, hey, instead of just sitting and wasting your time playing video games, look, you can be productive and do all of these things. You can start a business, you can hustle, you can go out and sell this, you can do that and this and all that. But that idea generally is good, but I think we have taken that a little too far, to such an extent that people are so stressed. At one point, I used to be one of those guys. Okay, I used to be a guy who used to worry about my productivity so much that, damn, it used to stress the living hell out of me. At one point, when my anxiety got really bad, I decided, look, I don't care about my productivity. I'm okay with wasting a little bit of time. So you can't take things a little too far, even if you try to if you keep thinking about trying to use your time wisely.
If you sit down and do nothing, it is not a waste of time. I think that is
Right.
something we are never told. It's never in common. Like YouTubers not never tell you this, at least that whatever I have seen. It's just that there is a certain happiness and joy that comes from just sitting down and looking around you and going for a stroll outside.
Yeah.
And it's a good half an hour spent, better than you can do any productivity thing.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like with everything else, it seems like there is a happy medium. Just like with money, if you are Uncle Scrooge who aggressively saves money, then if you behave like that with time, it means that you're not spending any time with friends. You are focusing too much on being productive and sitting at your desk all day doing productive things. And then you're not spending time with friends and family, and you end up living a poor life and come off as an asshole. There is this sci-fi movie called In Time, which I've watched this movie 3 or 4 times. I really like it a lot, but it's not very popular.
Mhm.
It's become one of those cult movies. Okay, do you want to know what it is?
Yeah.
I'll try not to give away too much, or yeah, I'll try not to give away spoilers, but
I haven't
so
seen the movie, so
yeah. So In Time, so the movie's called In Time, right? Featuring Justin Timberlake. It's a future where humans are genetically engineered to stop aging. Okay.
okay.
So now that's a problem, right? Because no one dies. So
Yeah.
what has happened is when you turn 25 years of age, a 1 year countdown timer on your forearm starts. So until 25, you're fine. And then you have 1 year to live once you turn 25. And when you work, you are paid in time. So you go and if you're a day laborer, you go and work in some place. And then at the end of the day, they add time to your clock, which is playing on your forearm all the time. Okay.
Oh, nice.
What happens here is that the whole social strata is divided based on how much time a person has. So the rich have hundreds of years on their clock and the poor have less than a day. And they are literally living day to day.
That's perfect. It's a great concept.
It's a great concept. Of course, like in our whole discussion, time is the limited resource, but it is fun to think of this good sci-fi movie where you can potentially have you can potentially earn unlimited time.
Let me ask you a question that puts this whole movie into one simple question. If at this moment, right now, there was like a magic spell that you could swap bodies with Warren Buffett, would you do it? Because you have to remember he's over 90, but he has way more money than you can ever probably make in your lifetime and mine and ours combined. But would you make that trade?
Yeah. No, you wouldn't, right?
So now you wouldn't. So now you tell me what you really think is important.
Yeah.
The money or the time?
Oh my God, man. Hitting it where it hurts, Vikram.
This reminds me of a really nice poem by Shel Silverstein, of whom we are big fans of, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's called The Clock Man. You want me to read it to you?
Yes, sir.
So this is The Clock Man by Shel Silverstein from the book Everything on It. How much will you pay for an extra day? The clock man asked the child. Not 1 penny, the answer came. For my days are as many as smiles. How much will you pay for an extra day? He asked when the child was grown. Maybe $1 or maybe less, for I've plenty of days of my own. How much will you pay for an extra day? He asked when the time came to die. All of the pearls in the seas and all of the stars in the sky.
Incredible. Since we're talking about money and selfishness and greed, can I indulge in a lesson from the Mahabharata?
Of course.
So in the Mahabharata, right, you'll hear this word dharma being thrown around quite often. Okay, now, and what is this dharma, right? You hear it all the time in the Mahabharata. Every time any character in the Mahabharata has to make a decision, anytime they're posed with a tough question and they have to make a choice, the way they make the choice is, okay, is my decision according to dharma? That is how everyone makes their decisions. So what is dharma? Now, what the Vedas say is, at one point, the only law that existed in the land is the law of the jungle, where there's a pecking order, the mighty rule and the mighty establish territories, and all the animals have no choice, but they have to subscribe to this law of jungle. Okay, that's the only law. But at some point, we humans, we woke up and we gained consciousness. And from that point, the law of jungle became a choice for us. Okay, as conscious beings, we have the capability to create a world. We have the capability to create a society where everyone feels safe, and where the mighty, instead of oppressing the weak, the mighty can care for the weak, and resources can be made available for everyone to thrive. So this is what dharma is. Okay, so dharma is basically living life consciously and making sure you're not oppressing anyone, and where you make resources available for everyone. Okay, and withholding resources and exploiting the weak is called adharma. Okay, and this is the reason why in the Mahabharata every decision is made based on dharma. But the end of the Mahabharata, right, it is considered the start of Kali Yuga, and Kali Yuga refers to a time where dharma is lost, where humans lack the spirit of generosity, and life has become all about taking and hoarding. Okay, so what the Vedas say is that at some point the Kali Yuga is going to start, at which point humans are going to lack the spirit of generosity, and it's completely based on taking and hoarding. And what it says that the primary cause of any strife, internal or external to oneself, is this problem of losing dharma.
Oh, nice.
Very intense, right?
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing for me is that these philosophies which were written thousands of years ago are very relevant right now.
So it is still okay if we can hoard time. We should hoard time. Don't hoard too much money. Hoard enough money, just enough. And hoard time for the rest of it, because that is going to make you wealthier than you can ever imagine.
So on that note, I think we can call this one. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Half-Life Show. We hope you enjoyed it. All the references and all the books and other stuff that we spoke about, we'll have it in the show notes. And also do check us out on Instagram. Our handle is @halflife.show. And slide into our DMs and send us messages. Tell us what you liked about it. And if there's something that you would like to hear about in the future, let us know. We'll probably talk about it. Thank you.